are these speed demons. And so we did the Monty Hall problem thingy. I don't know if most of you or any of you, or I don't know, were here last time that we talked about it, but pretty much Professor Van Heuvel-Braun, him, a psychology professor, was asking some students to look into finding some software to better help explain the Monty Hall problem to students because it's really confusing. And yeah, so we actually didn't make software to, well, I guess it did. Yeah, it did. Okay, so the idea is that there were many different explanations in like history when a lot of people realized that this is sort of weird of why you should switch. And sorry, I got distracted. How are we doing?
Trying to connect it to the external button.
Okay, so the idea is that
I'm going to do a demo this time.
Yes.
yeah. So the idea is that we wanted to experiment to see which of these tutorials or lessons or explanations was most effective in helping students understand why the Monty Hall problem is the way it is. So we created like an experiment simulation, not a simulation, it's not. So for students to go in and they are given a tutorial, they read it, and then they're given a little test at the end. And ideally, if they understood the explanation, then they'll do better on the test. So to help professors like him better explain the paradox. Yeah.
It's lost everything.
Oh no.
That's all right.
So, do people know what the Monty Hall problem is? Because I just sort of glanced over that. Is anyone confused? Are we good? We're good.
Okay. Skip the demo.
Yep, so we're just going to skip right to the demo because we did all this stuff last time. Okay, so first we start off with like a basic Monty Hall simulation game thing to see where they're starting off from. And yep, so it lost and then it goes.
And this is, 1 second.
Screen.
There we go.
Okay, so this is one of the explanations. This is like a game, an interactive game to, because it's usually with 3 doors, so this one is with more doors. So the idea is if they play enough around with it, maybe they'll understand why it's better to switch than to stay. And there's a bunch of different tutorials and lessons. What?
Can we break them to go to the test?
Oh, are you guys cool? Yeah, let's just go. We're short on time. And then it sort of changes up the original assumptions of the Monty Hall problem, and the idea, and we're trying to see, do people understand why when you change certain things about the problem, why the numbers would change or wouldn't change. So, yeah. And then we're just going to store that data and give it to Braun and stuff. Does anyone have questions? Oh man, I was so confusing. You.
Okay, wait. So is Professor Braun actually planning on like giving individual like assessments? Because I mean, imagine, let's say, if you're having comprehensive testing modules, if you are saying, hey, I'm going to try test 1, test 2, test 3, you're still carrying all that information from the previous tests. So
Yeah. So the idea is that you would just do one, and then it would be done. And we did some things to make that happen. Maybe.
I missed that, sorry. Oh, the test modules. The databases and stuff can support different testing modules. Braun didn't ask for anything specific, so I didn't implement anything specific with regards to that, though. It is, however, very easy to add on to.
Can you go back to the 3-door one, the original demo? Let's do the demo a little bit slower.
Okay.
So can you explain from here the actual, like, problem?
Okay, so the actual problem is it was a game show, and Monty Hall was the host, so that's why it was named after him. And so there are 3 doors, and one of them contains a car, and 2 contain goats. And you'll open up one, no, you'll choose one, it stays closed, and then the host will open up one of the other 2 doors, and that one will contain a goat. So is it in your best interest to stay or switch? So, yeah. So then he opened up door number 3. That one has a goat. You shouldn't choose that one unless you want a goat. So is it in your best interest to stay with your first choice or to go to the second one? I'll give you a hint. It's that one. But
Just curious, is Gronk's plans for this type of software purely for this situation, or possibly if he's trying to convey different ideas in different ways to figure out what's most effective for like other types of course materials? Or is it just?
I think he does sort of want to expand into that a bit.
yeah, so like the one with a bunch of doors, there's also a textual version of it. So trying to also see like, is visual representations better? Are more textual representations better? To sort of explain these sort of weird things that don't really make sense the first time you do it.
So does it randomly choose a different tutorial for the second step every time?
Yes.
Yes. And then there's like 10 different explanations.
I'm sure you've probably thought of this, but if you wanted to test which way is better, you could A/B test it against like you're testing. So like you can test the visual and see what people score, and then test the text and see what people score.
So that's kind of what we're doing because it isn't, there's all sorts of different explanations. So there's one that it's when you expand the number of doors as opposed to just using 3, you use 10,000 or 10 or whatever. And so there are ones like those that can be broken down. And, but there are other ones too, like this one is, you know, like a table. But it isn't the same thing as a bunch of doors. So I mean, we're kind of like A, B, C, D, E, F, blah, testing. Any more questions?
I'm just thinking, mightn't like the interactive one be like better to learn just because you're actually interacting with it than just looking at a table? I don't know if you were thought of it.
The point of this is to see if that is true, and see those kind of methods to work out better than something really text-based.
Just curious, possibly by any chance, did you guys for one of the tests show the ASAP science of that? Because that video is like the most extremely useful resource I've ever seen. And it's like 2.5 minutes.
Well, that'll be really useful in our lives, actually. So thank you. What was that called?
ASAP science.
ASAP science. Gotta remember this.
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't include any videos, but thank you for mentioning that.
Yes. Good. Okay, and thanks to you and that guy and all of you and yeah.